It's very sad, and it's not the only British motoring institution that's coming to an end. We are... This is not just the last in the series.
What you're about to hear is the story of how the greatest motoring trio in television history finally called it quits. This is the untold truth behind the split that nobody saw coming. For over 2 decades, 3 names dominated the automotive world: Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. Together, they weren't just TV presenters, they were a cultural phenomenon. When they took over BBC Top Gear in the early 2000s, nobody could have predicted what would happen next. A modest car show transformed into a global juggernaut. Week after week, millions tuned in to watch these 3 tear across deserts in amphibious disasters, race supercars against bullet trains, and embark on road trips that felt more like cinematic adventures than television segments. They made you feel like you were right there in the passenger seat, windows down, engines roaring. Clarkson, Hammond, and May became more than hosts. They became the 3 musketeers of motorsport entertainment. Welcome back to Tuna No Crust, the largest car TV show news on YouTube. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's roll. But here's the thing about great partnerships, they're fragile. In 2015, everything changed. Clarkson's very public exit from the BBC sent shockwaves through the motoring world. Fans everywhere asked the same question: was this the end? It wasn't. Instead of breaking up, the trio simply shifted gears. They packed up their famous studio tent and made a move that stunned the industry. They signed with Amazon Prime. On November 18, 2016, the Grand Tour was born. Once again, they set up shop under a traveling circus tent, but this time they went truly global. From icy Norwegian fjords to scorching African savannas, they pushed themselves harder than ever before. The stakes got higher, the stunts got crazier, and year after year, they reminded us exactly why we loved them in the first place. It felt like the adventure would never end. But by 2024, something had changed. Whispers started circulating in the industry. The era of the trio was winding down. At first, it was just rumors, industry insiders trading gossip, but then the evidence started piling up. First came the news in July 2024 that W. Chump & Sons, the jokingly named production company behind all their shows, run by the trio along with their longtime producer, had filed paperwork for dissolution. Then Amazon dropped the announcement: one final Grand Tour special, one for the road, they called it, set in Zimbabwe. And here's what made everyone's hearts sink: this would be the very last episode featuring all 3 of them together. The teaser clips started surfacing online. Fans around the globe held their breath. The buzz grew from a murmur to a deafening roar. After 22 years together, the ride was almost over. On camera, the hosts played it cool, business as usual, but in interviews, the truth started spilling out. Hammond cracked a joke that they'd been doing this for 136 years, implying with his trademark grin that maybe it was time to stop. But behind the humor lay reality. Clarkson was brutally honest in his assessment. After 36 years on television talking about cars, he admitted he was packing it in. He laughed about being too old and too heavy to shimmy into those tiny sports cars anymore, but you could tell he meant it. James May, ever the pragmatist, put it plainly: they were getting on a bit. After all the laughs, all the stunts, all the near-death experiences, it was better to land the show safely than to crash it off a cliff. There was no scandal here, no backstage drama, no bitter feuds. Just 3 friends who had discussed for years when and how to say goodbye. And then came the moment everyone had been dreading. Cameras rolled on One for the Road. History was being made. This wasn't just another special. This was the swan song. Every frame dripped with nostalgia and raw emotion. And here's where it gets poetic. The trio returned to where it all began. They crossed the endless Magatik Gadi salt pans in Botswana, the same location from that legendary Top Gear special all those years ago. Under that vast African sky, their journey came full circle. Clarkson even said the line out loud: "This is it, the last time."
So, for the last time, here we go.
Viewers watching the trailer were moved to tears. In that moment, everyone understood. The era of the 3 had finally drawn to a close. When the final episode dropped on Amazon Prime, it felt like the end of an age. The episode would go on to earn a staggering 9.6 rating on IMDb, one of the highest rated pieces of automotive television ever made. Fans weren't just watching a TV show end, they were witnessing the conclusion of a 22-year partnership that had defined their love for cars. And then in March 2025, it became official. W. Chump & Sons was formally dissolved. The trio's joint company shut its doors, with approximately $24 million on the books. Each partner walked away with roughly $6 million, a fortune built on 2 decades of controlled chaos and automotive mayhem. The Grand Tour's original run was over. Amazon quietly lined up new faces, younger YouTubers and social media stars, to reboot the show. But not with Clarkson, Hammond, and May at the helm. Hammond laughed it off in interviews. "The Grand Tour continues," he explained. "We're just stepping away as hosts." He even joked about sitting back in his own chair and watching someone else take the wheel for a change. No hard feelings, no bitterness, just an emotional farewell. So what's next for these 3 legends? For Richard Hammond, this isn't the end. It's a new beginning. Freed from the trio's dynamic, he's already embarked on his own adventures. He runs Drive Tribe and curates a thriving YouTube channel, his personal playground for pure, unscripted automotive enthusiasm. No longer confined to playing the hamster character on TV, Hammond gets to be himself, tinkering with engines, rebuilding classic cars, filming new series, hosting live events, always with that same infectious grin, still chasing the next thrill. Jeremy Clarkson? He's found unexpected contentment farming in the English countryside, tending sheep far from studio lights. His Amazon series Clarkson's Farm has become a surprise hit, showing a completely different side of the man who once set caravans on fire for entertainment. James May spends his time wandering new roads, filming travel, and cooking specials that scratch a completely different itch. He's explored Japan, Italy, and his own quirky obsessions with a calm curiosity that was always lurking beneath the Top Gear chaos. The 3 of them never split in anger. They never burned bridges. After their final lap, they stood up, shook hands, and went their separate ways. Each man simply understood that this particular ride had reached its final stop. At the heart of this split was something deeply human: growth and exhaustion. 2 decades of non-stop, high-octane adventures can wear anyone down. Clarkson was ready for something real and calm. May realized they'd taken this act as far as it could go. Hammond wanted room to create outside the trio's shadow. They admitted it openly. They weren't the same young showmen from 2002. They had grown up. Their ambitions had evolved. They loved each other, but they loved fresh challenges even more. There were no villains in this story, just 3 friends who gave fans everything they had, then chose to bow out on their own terms instead of letting the engines burn out. But here's where it gets complicated. W. Chump & Sons closed with $24 million on the books. Each of the 4 partners, the 3 presenters and their longtime producer, walked away with approximately £6 million each. For some fans, this felt less like a retirement and more like a final asset strip of an empire. The laughter, the crashes, the camaraderie, all immortalized, yes, but also monetized, packaged, and sold off. The greatest motoring trio of all time didn't explode in a blaze of glory. They wound down in paperwork. The boys who once drove supercars into volcanoes signed off with accountants and lawyers. Maybe that's the most honest ending possible in modern entertainment. The road that once stretched endlessly ahead has hit its final junction. What began as a revolution in 2002 ended on September 13th, 2024, as a business transaction. 22 years, hundreds of cars, countless near-death experiences, and a 9.6 IMDb rating for their final bow. But here's what can't be taken away: the memories, the joy, the moments that made millions of people fall in love with cars all over again. Clarkson, Hammond, and May changed television forever. They proved that a show about cars could be about so much more: friendship, adventure, pushing boundaries, and never taking yourself too seriously. The final split might have happened in a boardroom, but the legacy was written on racetracks, deserts, and mountain passes around the world. From the Botswana salt flats in 2007 to the same location in 2024, they gave us everything, and that can never be dissolved. Until next time, stay sideways.